Morning, Prairie Plant Girl here. Well, garden's looking a little crazy this morning, but a lot better than it was forecast to look. We were forecast for a possible frost last night, and I did really good to water things in, harvest a lot, and just generally prepare myself for a possible end of the season for some of my plants. It was just going to be a light frost likely, so some things are going to be fine. And early in the wee hours of the morning, that frost advisory was canceled, and I think we only got down to about 4. Just still cold, but it could have been worse. So now I just need to uncover everything so I can enjoy the sunshine. And we're supposed to have more cool nights, but shouldn't have frost now for what the next week is looking like. So that's good news. So hopefully I'll get at least one more week out of my garden here, because there's a lot of tomatoes and actually several peppers left that I left on the plants because I knew what the forecast was looking like, so I kind of hedged my bets and hoped that we wouldn't get that frost. Took a lot off, but left quite a bit as well because they'll do better just ripening on the plants. I'd rather have them ripen out here. So hopefully that works out for me. So I just used a combination of frost blankets here. You have to be careful with these when you're doing things like tomatoes that are staked, because they can cut right through. Luckily, the wind was going down last night, and I just tried to very carefully drape them over, mostly where the tomatoes are taller than the stakes. I did have a couple stakes sticking out, and then I also used just some old bed sheets. So anything, you could use a cardboard box. One of my plants actually just had an old grow bag thrown over it. Used burlap. Just something to cover to keep the sun off. Plastic doesn't work well for protecting from frost, but you can buy these frost blankets a lot of places, and they'll give you different degrees of frost protection. I bought some recently, like last fall recently, I think it was, that give you like 4 degrees or something. A lot of them are just a couple of degrees. So just read the weights and that, and do your research to find out, get what you need. And a lot of them will come in really narrow, long lengths. So a lot of mine I've taken and I've cut in half the long way to make 2 shorter pieces, and then I've sewn them together along that length to make, so I don't know how well you can see with the light shining, but there's a seam through here going down the long way, so it's now wider and shorter than it was when I got it, and that works good for my raised beds. I usually use these mostly in the spring, and then they're just the perfect size to put over some low hoops to cover up tender young plants. And then I can just leave them on when the spring weather is cool, even during the day, and they'll let air and light through. Whereas things like sheets, cardboard boxes, burlap, grow bags, you need to take those off during the day to let the light in, let some of the air movement through so you don't get disease, and just keeps your plants healthier that way. So that's the nice thing about the frost blankets, is you can leave them on if you need to. But this was just kind of a one-night thing, so anything I could throw on my plants just to protect them for one night was all I needed. So it's a chilly morning. The plants are definitely going to be slowing down on their growth because we are getting chillier now at night, and it's taking longer to warm up during the day. I think it only got to 17 yesterday, and it's only about 9 right now I think it's about 9 o'clock. Oh, it's warmed up. It's 12 degrees at 9 o'clock now. But yeah, but we often have that. We'll have that one cool night here in Saskatchewan that can take plants out because we can get frost this early. It's not unheard of. It wasn't an odd thing to get that frost warning, or advisory, I guess. But then we often will get some very nice warm weather. So if we're able to carry our plants through that cold night, we can get an extra few weeks of nearly summer-like conditions. So that little bit of effort can be worth it. So yesterday I went through, I picked off anything that was definitely ripe and would be better being in the house in case we did get frost. And I did a whole video on that. And then I made sure everything else was watered in really, really well, because the moisture in the ground will help to regulate the temperature around the plants, and plants always do better through cold weather if they're well watered. I mean, you don't want them soggy wet, but well watered is a good thing. And after the very dry August we've had, some of my plants just weren't well watered. You can see I still had a lot of cherry tomatoes growing, and I just left them. I ate a ton of them while I cleaned up, and I left them because it's just too many for me to deal with in the house right now. But I definitely enjoyed them while I'm out here. The one thing about tomatoes when you start get these cool nights is they can start to take on that taste of a tomato being stored in the refrigerator. So it's kind of a decision you have to make about whether you pull them, have them inside, ripening inside, which also affects the flavor, I find, or if you leave them outside to ripen on the vine and you get those few cold nights, and then that affects the flavor. So it's kind of a 6 of one, half dozen of another kind of situation, and you just have to pick the one that works for you. When I came out to cover my plants, I made sure to cover them when we were at the warmest part of the day, but just kind of to that tipping point where it was going to start to cool down again, to try and trap some of the heat down that was in the ground and on the plants. Try and trap that in there. I don't want to wait till, before I go to bed to come out and start covering things up, because by then a lot of that warmth has been lost. So if you're looking to do that, it seems silly to be out in the middle of the afternoon, the sun is shining, and covering your plants up, but unless it's extremely hot, which this time of year here it's not usually, it's good to try and trap some of that heat in there before the cold night comes. So as I was deciding how to deal with my melon plants on this trellis yesterday, I just wasn't sure. I do have a big tree over top, which should kind of help hold some of the warmth air down and keep some humidity and things here. But I decided to just put a sheet over kind of the front to block this early morning sun from hitting right on the plants if they had frost on them. Because if they can warm up and this frost can melt off before the sun hits them, that can go a long way to protecting plants. Now, I don't know with melon if that would have been enough, but luckily I didn't have to find out.